Hey guys, I'm going to go through the answers for your quiz. Please don't be alarmed if your questions are in a different order. Everybody's are likely in a different order. So just try and find this question within your mix and you can check on it. So for this first one, what's the area of a triangle? Well, I want the area to be half the measure of the base times the height, or base times height divided by 2. Base and height will always be perpendicular to each other. And since this is a right triangle, I have two sides that are perpendicular. If I make x plus 1 my base, the height, how tall the triangle extends from that base, is 6. So I can find my area by now simplifying this calculation. I have 1/2 times x plus 1 times 6. So when I'm doing multiplication of multiple things, I can take any two that I want to multiply together. So I'm going to choose, because they're easy to multiply, to choose to multiply 1/2 times 6 next. So I have the area is equal to 3 times x plus 1. I could either, nope, never mind, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to distribute that 3 at this point, and I get that my area is 3 times x plus 3 times 1. So that's where this result comes from. Next question, number 2. Well, my number 2. What is the height of a parallelogram? If the area is 56. So if I'm talking about a parallelogram and I'm dealing with the area, I know I want base times height. In this particular question, I know the area is 56, so I'll substitute that in. They want me to find the height, so I know that that's my x. And as far as the base goes, the base is always going to be the side of the parallelogram that's perpendicular to the height. So that's not just this 11, it's not just this 5, it's this whole side that's actually worth 16. So when I go to solve for x and look for x alone, I divide by 16, and I wind up with a height of 3.5. Next question. Find the area of this triangle. So since we're looking for area of a triangle, I know I'm working with 1/2 times base times height. So base and height, again, will always be perpendicular to each other, but it's super important to always remember that the base is just a side of the triangle. No more, no less. So if I'm looking at a side of a triangle that's perpendicular to some measure here, my base is going to be that side of 10. And although that 6 is all the way out here, they could have labeled 6 around here and said that this triangle reaches 6 feet high from that base. That height is 6. So I have an area of 1/2 times 60, so that's an area of 30 feet squared. Next problem. What's the area of the parallelogram? If we're dealing with a parallelogram, we just want a simple base times height. Once again, base and height are always perpendicular, and the base is always a side of the shape, no more, no less. So if I'm looking at measures that are perpendicular here, I have a right angle. So I know that this 12 is perpendicular to the 9. Technically, if I shifted it over, it's perpendicular to the 25. It's perpendicular to the entire thing. But remember that base is always a side. So 25 is my base, and the height, how high this extends from that base, is 12. So if I do my 25 times 12, I get an area of 300 feet squared. Next problem, find the circumference of a circle if the area is 900 pi. So they want me to find the circumference, and I know that formula is pi times diameter, or pi times 2 times the radius. But I don't know the radius or the diameter. What I do know is the area. So you have to use the area formula off on the side, pi r squared, in order to actually find the radius. Since they're telling me since they're telling me the area is 900 pi, that means I can take 900 pi and substitute it in for A, because now that I do that, I can solve for the radius. If I divide by pi, I wind up just getting 900 equals the radius squared. And in order to have the radius alone, I would square root, which means what I'm actually working with is a radius of 30. Now that I have a radius of 30, I can go back up to this circumference formula. I have pi times 2 times the radius of 30, which means I have a circumference of 60 pi feet. Next, what is the area of the kite? This kind of got enlarged a bit here, but when I'm looking for the area of a kite, remember we want to use the formula of diagonal 1 times diagonal 2 divide by 2. The first diagonal, let's talk about this one that's vertical here with the 8 and the 3. 8 plus 3, I know that that one has a length of 11. While they only gave me 5 for the other diagonal, this ultimately is a kite, so I should remember that that diagonal is bisected. So if this is 5, that's 5, making the whole thing 10. And now I just calculate. I have 110 divided by 2, and that's going to give me 55 units squared as my result. Next. What is the perimeter of this triangle? So to get perimeter, we add up all the sides. So perimeter here, we have 6 plus 2x plus x plus 1. Combine your like terms. We have a positive 2x plus 1x, so that's 3x. Then we have positive 6 plus 1, that gives me 7. So 3x plus 7 is our perimeter. Next question, what is the area of the rhombus? There are technically two formulas for the area of a rhombus. We can consider it a parallelogram, which it is, and look at it as base times height, or we can consider it with the same formula of a kite. Diagonal 1 times diagonal 2 divide by 2. Remember that base and height always have to be perpendicular to each other, and the only place within here that I have perpendicularity is at this intersection of the diagonals. While I know a side is 5, I don't know the height that's perpendicular to that 5, so I cannot use this formula. I do know the diagonals, however. I know BD is worth 6, and I know that AC is worth a full 8. So we have 6 times 8 giving us 48, and then we have divide that by 2 to have an area of 24 units squared. Next question, find the area of the trapezoid. Trapezoid formula is 1/2 times the sum of the bases times the height. The bases are always going to be parallel to each other. So this side and this side are the parallel ones, making those my two bases. Just like every other problem, height is always going to be perpendicular to the bases. It's the distance between my two bases. In this case, it's my 4. Notice that the 4 is what's perpendicular to both bases, not the 5. Now we just solve. 5 plus 8, what's happening? There we go. 5 plus 8 gives me 13. I have times 1/2 times 4, and we're going to get 26 meters squared. Next, what is the area of the slice removed from this 12-inch pizza pie? So what they're really saying is that we have a circle, and the area of a circle is pi r squared, but what we're looking for is a portion of this pie. So while we can get the area of the full circle, we're only looking for a fraction of the circle. Out of the 360 degrees that make up a circle, we're only looking for the area of 42 degrees here. In addition to knowing how many degrees of the full pie we're looking for, I need to know the radius. They told me it's a 12-inch pie and then reminded that what that means is it has a 12-inch diameter, which means my radius is actually 6. So the area of the entire pie would be 36 pi. But again, we want this portion of that pie. So I'm going to take that 36 pi and multiply it by that 42 out of 360, sorry, forgetting how to speak. So we have an area of 4.2 pi inches squared. Next, find the base of a rectangle if you know the area and the height. Formula for the area of a rectangle is going to be base times height. They tell you the area, so we pop that a out and we put 24x squared plus 8x in its place. They tell you the height is 4, so we take h out and put 4 in its place. And now in order to solve for b, I'm going to divide by 4. And now since I have a numerator that has addition in it, I need to make sure I divide every part of this by 4. So it's 24x squared divided by 4 to give me 6x squared. It's also 8x divided by 4 to get me an extra 2x. So my base is that result, 6x squared plus 2x. Okay, next, what would be the measure of the other diagonal if we know one diagonal and we know the area? So when we're talking about this shape, which is a kite, I know I'm using that formula. That's diagonal 1 times diagonal 2 divided by 2. Diagonal 1, okay, great. I know one of my diagonals is 15, so I substitute that in. They also tell me my area is 126x. So put that whole thing in as it is, and then I solve. So 126x equals 7.5 times diagonal 2. I divide by 7.5 and I get 16.8x. Okay, next. What is the area of a square if the perimeter is 100 feet? Well, if we're dealing with a square, we should remember that all the sides are congruent. And if I have perimeter, means I add up all the sides. So if I have a perimeter of 100 and I divide it evenly by all 4 sides, I know that each side is worth 25 feet. Now, in order to find the area of this, I want base times height. And if all the sides are the same, well, I know that they're all perpendicular to each other too. So I'm really doing 25 times 25. So that's going to get me an area of 625 feet squared. Okay, 2 more questions. Find the perimeter of the following shape. Remember, that means just add up all your sides. So 3x plus 12 plus another 12 plus 2x plus 3 plus x minus 1. So I have positive 3x plus 2x, plus 1x, so that's 6x altogether. And then I have 12 plus 12 to get me 24, plus 3 to get me 27, minus 1 to give me 26. So I have 6x plus 26. Last question. Find the height of the trapezoid. So the height of my trapezoid means I'm using, and they're giving me the area, so I'm using the area formula. 1/2 times base 1 plus base 2 times height. I want the height, so leave that alone. They tell me the area is 88. My parallel sides are 7 and 15, so those are the bases. And then I solve. 7 plus 15, I'm going to get 22. So 1/2 times 22 times h equals 88. That means 88 is really equal to 11 times h, which means when I divide by 11, I get a height of 8 feet. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Bye.